No, don't jump on my computer. Oh, wow. Okay, let's do laptop. Good morning, my friends. Glad you're joining me this morning. And we are all here for the big reveal. Yep, I finished Stitcher's retreat last night, about 7 o'clock. And to be honest, let me see. There we go. Hi, Brenda. Glad you joined. You finally caught me live, huh? There we go. We're going to show the comments. Good morning, Joy. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Bruce. Glad you're here. Let me move these things around a little bit. There we go. Hopefully you can see the chat in the window and see the piece. So we are here for the big live look at Stitcher's Retreat. I have to say, after I finished this last evening, it was a little too dark to do this last night. Good morning, Edith. Well, you're new. Well, I am so glad to have you here. Absolutely. Join the fun. Join the fun. I really felt a little lost. I was like, oh, now what? What do I do? Hi, Sheila. What do I do? What do I do with my hands? Yeah, I could pick up another piece to stitch because God only knows I'm like everybody else and have a ton. But I don't know. I already missed stitching on this. So let's look at the finish. I have a picture posted up here. There. Oh my God, this is backwards. So I took that picture this morning because it was just too dark in here last night. Once the sun goes down, the lighting is great during the day, and if I have a top light on, hi Joni, if I have a top light on, it's okay to see, and I have my stitching lamp, but not for pictures. So here we go. Let's look at the real thing. Okay. Hopefully I'm going to be able to, I got to move back further, get this all on the screen for you. So here we go. It's hard to see where I am. There we go. Oops, wrong way. Wrong way, wrong way. There we go. So that is Stitcher's Retreat. Done. Done on March the 5th, 2021. started on November. Actually, I was wrong last night. I actually started it November 27th of 2016. Yeah, it was fun. I loved every stitch, and I already miss it. It's, I already miss it. And you guys have been so wonderful and so supportive and encouraging, and ah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad each and every one um, has followed my journey, because it was certainly a journey. So what else do we have to talk about this morning? Looking forward to hearing my thoughts. Nooper, yeah, what can I say? I just enjoyed everything. I Yeah, and it was just a fun stitch. And if it was fun experimenting, it was fun experimenting with all the different techniques. I loved it. I just loved it. And what method I used to stitch at any given time was usually the mood of the moment. Joy, the finished dimensions. Well, I just happen to have these handy dandy cutting mats right here where I can tell you that it is about 25 wide by, let's see, about 29 and a half long, and that's on 25 count. So figure, just to round things out, 25 by 30. So yeah. And Sherry Berkman, well, it was Sherry Berkman, it's now Sherry Miller. If you are watching this, Sherry, after a wash and a press, it will be coming your way to do your magic for framing it. Um, Sherry and her sister Terry are total framing in, they have a shop in Fairfax, Virginia, and um, Chantilly, I think. Oh my goodness, yes. Pattern Keeper was definitely a game changer. Once I started using Pattern Keeper, in all honesty, that is when I strayed from the diagonal, because it was just so easy to follow a path and and stitch cross country, or cross country within a smaller section of the piece. The last bit that I did was cross country within that. I think it was probably close to, it wasn't a full page, but it was at least half a page. And that went so very, very fast. I, yes, I put a lot of time in it, but yesterday I did 1,300 stitches to finish. So, just as far as time is concerned, I stitched with very few breaks, potty breaks, lunch break, supper break, um, basically from about 9 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock last night. And then it was finished. Oh, thank you, Time to Stitch. I hope everyone finds these videos helpful. And you know what? We can all learn something new every day. all the time. And if we stop learning something new, yeah, what can I say? It's just, yes, pre-gridded fabric absolutely makes a difference. Yes, it is counted cross stitch. There were many, 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 many years where I know for myself, I didn't stitch anything that was pre-gridded. I thought it was, what bother? We all know how to count. Um, However, when you're doing something of this size, and not that they're not that they're hard to stitch, it's like any other cross stitch. It's one stitch at a time, and they are just X's, so it's not hard. What is challenging is the fact that there are so many colors and there's so much confetti. So pre-gridded fabric, when you're parking, really, really helps you to place that thread correctly at the next stitch where it's going to be used. And for those of you that don't quite understand parking, that's the whole concept is I'm going to stitch this X here, and then I'm going to look for where the color is used again the very next time, and I'm going to park my thread at my starting point for that stitch. The key to keeping track is always park in the same place. Always. So I always park in the bottom left-hand corner. Always. When I'm working top down, which is what I did with this, I always parked in the bottom left-hand corner so that when I got to that space, I knew that thread belonged to that stitch. And that's how you keep track. And Pattern Keeper also makes that amazingly easy because they give you the option to mark your park threads. So if you get to you stitch them merrily along, and you get to a point where you have a thread parked, but it's not marked on your chart, it sends that red flag up to say, uh-oh, what's wrong here? Something's not quite right. So that's when I look what color is supposed to be there, because maybe I just forgot to mark that I parked it. So first of all, I checked, is it the correct color in the correct space? If it's not, then I look at the stitches around it. So maybe a stitch or two before and a stitch or two after, and even a stitch or so below, and then try and match up with what's on my bobbin and what is parked to figure out which color it is. So that is the nice thing about stitching on, whether it's on the diagonal or in columns or whatever. That's the nice part about parking, because you're going to find, if you misparked, you're going to find it rather quickly, especially if you're using Pattern Keeper and you're marking where you parked your threads. Oh, Nicole, you only found me at the end of summer. Oh, but thanks for your support, and I'm glad you came back. I hope all of you, well, I hope all of you subscribe and keep coming back because we'll keep making videos. Joy, ugh, I'm not sure what's next. I really am not. I, at the moment, I feel kind of lost. I really do. I feel so like I don't know what I want. I have some projects started. Um, I have Once Upon a Time started, which is the Heaven and Earth. It's the open book with flowers down the side, and the saying about once upon a time there was an enchanted something or other and a girl who loved to read. I'd like to finish that. Hey, Carol. Hello. How are you? I haven't seen you in forever. Um, so I'm thinking I need to finish that for my daughter because she is an avid reader, and I do. She would just love that design. So I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what I want to finish. And then I think, do I want to take a little bit of a break from full coverage and do something not full coverage? I just don't know. I feel a little lost. Edith, main I can do the sewing method, and depending on what I'm stitching, I will use a sewing method. Um, but most of the time, I'm a stick and stabber. So, you know how they say, you like to, they like to stab something. Oh, I thought that was the Upsman stopping here. Pardon my distraction. Um, yeah, I'm a stick and stabber. I either use a Q snap or a hoop. And Bruce, if you're still here, yeah, I guess I did enable you, didn't I? Um, I got the uh, corner clamp for my Lowry, and it holds my Q snaps absolutely so much better. And the way I have it on the stand, it keeps my bottom open. Um, and I can feel around the back a lot better because, those nasty knots, they just sneak up on you sometimes. Um, Usually pretty fortunate in getting them out if you don't pull too tight. What do I do with all my fabric? Well, Bruce, hi Joyce, how are you? Long time no talk. I well, oh, that's my daughter. Pardon that sound. Um, my extra fabric. What I do is once it's in the Q snap, I roll it. And let me grab, let me get out of here because I'm kind of corded in. So we don't trip. Here we go. I roll the fabric up tight against the Q snap, and then I made these guys. And all it was a tube of fabric. Oops, I always go the wrong way. I made a soda tube. I got the long rectangular magnet, and I dropped that down in, and then I just sewed, hand stitched quickly a little seam to hold the magnet there. And on the other end, I had to sew the little seam first, drop the magnet in, and then stitched it closed. Oh, this is the end. I just whip stitched it closed so it would stay there. And you can make this any length that you want. And then what I do is I place this on the top and I roll this to the length that I just roll it up to the length I need, wrap it around my fabric, and put the two magnets together. So that's what I use most of the time. In fact, I think I will make a few more. I did get the, what are they called? Magnetic cable ties. Oh, good Lord. I can't even talk this morning. I'm so just pleased and lost. But they just, if you have a big big amount of fabric that you're trying to hold on. Sometimes they don't hold, but by using this, it holds perfectly fine. And you just roll your fabric up and put this around it, and one, and they're strong. One end goes on the top of your Q-snap, the other goes on the bottom of your Q-snap, and it stays. So easy to make. Just make a tube of fabric, drop some magnets in, stitch it closed, and there you have it. So another tip for the day. Yeah, try them. Try them. There, it just takes, all you need is the magnets, and then it just takes a couple minutes. Now, I will say, I will tell you, on on the first one, when I after I put the magnet in, um, I tried to sew it on the sewing machine. Don't do that. It sticks. You can't move it. It just sticks there. So if you're gonna, once you drop the magnet in to put it, keep it into place, you gotta almost sew that by hand, because if you don't, the magnet's just gonna stick to the plate on your sewing machine, and you're not gonna go nowhere. So sew them in by hand. It's just some back stitching to hold it in place, and easy peasy lemon squeezy. Um, Thank you, Irene. Time to stitch. Maintaining my fortitude on such a big piece. How can I say? First of all, first and foremost, pick a design that you love. That, I think, is the biggest key to completing a heaven and earth design. Pick a design that you love. Now, granted, this was a freebie, and at the time that I got it and started it, it was a freebie on the Heaven and Earth website. Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate that it's not available anymore, because it is an outstanding design. I was that person, and you can ask anybody that knows me personally, when I would go to stitch at a needle shop over in Lancaster. There was an evening stitching group that I used to go to before the shop closed. And I would always be saying over there, never, never. The shop owner was stitching a Heaven and Earth design, and I said, no, never going to happen. Never. I will never stitch one of those. No way. They're beautiful, but that's just not for me. Well, then, of course, you know how we all do. We all peruse the internet, we go looking, and I saw this freebie on Heaven and Earth, and I went, gotta stitch it. Fell in love with it, and said, you know what? I'm going to eat my words. I'm absolutely going to eat my words. And I downloaded it, and I ordered the fabric, and started stitching. Yeah, got all the floss together. And that's the other thing. Have yourself organized, some kind of system to keep your floss. I personally use the Bags Plus. Um, yeah, what are they? It's it's their organizer that holds 90 colors, because most of the things I stitched are just the standard normal amount of colors. I don't go for the max color. Mm-mm. Sometimes there's enough confetti in just the standard size color, standard size chart, that you really don't need. I don't need to do the max color. This was regular colors. I think it was 89. I want to say 89 colors, 88 or 89. Um, but firstly, pick a design you love. If you don't love it and want to see it hanging on your wall, you're probably not going to finish it. Have yourself organized. And I will honestly say, by doing these YouTube videos, whether they be just pre-recorded ones or the live, that has helped keep me motivated because I have gotten so much love and support from all of you that you get excited to, okay, how much more can I get finished, and to be able to show these guys. Um, Plus, also doing the tutorials of how to stitch on the diagonal. You know, I was working on this project, so obviously this is the project that I use to show you guys how to do diagonal stitching. So that's another motivator. I mean, not that everybody wants, a lot of people are doing FlossTube videos these days, and that's wonderful. The more the merrier. I, up to this point, have pretty much kept my channel as to teaching people something new or helping people with something they're having trouble with. I guess that is I'm not a teacher, I'm a nurse. So I guess that's just part of my personality of wanting to help make things better for someone else, help make their stitching better. Brenda, you are absolutely right. Our non-stitcher friends don't understand. They don't get it. No, they don't understand at all. Um, yeah. So, and then people ask me, "Oh, are you going to sell that?" Uh, no. You couldn't afford what I would have to ask for this. Figure 5 years of just minimum wage, and then that would not even include the material, the fabric, the thread, which it's takes a lot of thread, uh, and your time. How can you how can you put a price on your time? You can't. I mean, just look at yesterday. I spent from 10 hours, 10 hours to stitch 1,300 stitches, basically. At minimum wage, no. I have no idea because I didn't keep records of it, of how many hours are in this. Um, I don't think I want to know, to tell you the truth, because it's probably more than I'd care to admit. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Time to Stitch. I try. I try very hard. And Nooper, you're right. Those of us in healthcare are teachers. And when I worked yet, and I've been retired since, well, it's about 8 years, thereabouts. Um, I was an assistant director of nursing, and probably a lot of what I did is um, teach. I taught all the abuse classes, the required. Um, in long-term care, you have so many subjects that you're required to in service every year, and I did all that in servicing, and of course many other teachings. So I really found, and what works the best for me is to keep it very simple, explain it very concretely, step by step. This is how you do it. And those of you that are teachers will probably agree with me. The most important thing is to be encouraging and to let people know, hey, you're doing a good job. You're doing a fantastic job. And I think that's what gets us all through a whole lot of things. Yeah. So that's that. Um, but I am glad. I'm glad that you guys find these helpful because that's really what it's all about. Oh, Bruce, thank you. I'm so glad. I am very glad. And that's what it really is all about. It's making ourselves better at what we do. Nobody's perfect. And let me tell you, there are mistakes in this. This is by no means a perfect piece. Oh, I'm showing you the back. Okay, you get to see the back. Um, there are plenty of mistakes, and I will be the first to fess up if, and I call them one stitch wonders, you're working in an area and there is that one isolated stitch, and that's the color is to be found nowhere else. Um, I stitch it with whatever thread is in my needle at the time. So there are all those mistakes. Well, hi, Amy. Welcome. I'm so glad you joined us. Oh, yes, please. There, you'll see the whole piece. I mean, I have a picture here, here of the piece, and you can see it live. But okay, guys, help me out here. What would you do? It has crossed my mind to when I send this down to Total Framing to ask Sherry to frame it with the back open because on the back, can you see? You can see my stitching journey. You can see where I stitched in columns. Look, there we go. You can see this place was done cross country. This was columns. Then I went to diagonals. Then I switched directions. Whoops. I switched directions of the diagonals. And, it's so would you frame it with the back open so that I mean, I don't know how often people will want you to show the back, but it is the story of the whole piece. So I'm debating, do I want the back open or do I want to just let it be a surprise for the next person who takes the framing apart and looks at it? I can't I can't I can't decide. Um, oh, Nooper, that is so kind of you. And you're right. Most things are simple. It is simple. And yeah, live the moment because you know what? The older I get, the more I go, life is too short. Life is too short. So share the moment and live within the moment and find the joy of that moment and find the joy of your stitching. Joy, it will be put on foam core, I'm sure. I know Sherry pins. She does pin mounting. Yeah. I don't know. I'm really undecided. I think if I would ask Sherry, she would try and frame it. But I know she uses foam core and I know she mounts things by pinning them. Um, yeah, yeah. Probably what I'm going to end up doing is just having it framed as usual, and um, letting the next person find it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Time to stitch. That's a good idea. Place it in an envelope. Yes, and the mounting would cover the back. Um, but I have my little journal book that I kept before I started actually um, tracking my stitching on my laptop, um, where every day I would put the ending stitch count from Pattern Keeper, and then I had it set up that it would calculate my number of stitches stitched and how many stitches I had left to stitch. Um, and then I'd put in the percentage from Pattern Keeper. So I have the book when I hand wrote. I plan on printing out my pages from my spreadsheet and putting those in the book. Um, so that's another thing. I could take a picture of the entire back and add that to the book, and any personalizations that I'd like to add to that, and then ask Sherry to either put it in an envelope on the outside or to stick it inside when she frames it. So there's options. Yeah. So there are options. And I will get it finished getting it together. I made a slideshow, or I started making a slideshow of the journey. Now, I think because I can't find them, I think I deleted pictures from, or I didn't take them from the very, very beginning. But I believe I had the first row done, and I was working on the second row when I started taking regular pictures. So I've started putting those in a slideshow. So when I finish that, I will post that video here so that you can all have a look at that journey down the road. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Time to Stitch is either put that book inside when it's framed, or put an envelope on the outside that will hold all of that information and pictures of the journey along the way. Um, the other thing I do want to do yet, and I just have to figure out where I'm going to put it. I really want to sign this piece. I want to put my name on it, and I'll put my full name on it and the year 2021. And I'm thinking of putting it down here in, oh, let me see, this corner. Um, in the lower, when I'm facing it, in the lower left corner where that lighter stitching is, I think what I will do yet is stitch my name and the date in there. And I think that's important. Um, Not just with these full coverage pieces, but with any piece that you stitch. Take the credit for what you did. Take the credit for your hard work. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. I think we now, and there are many people that collect original samplers from way back when, and the samplers that become the most important are those that are signed and dated. That's what people look for. I mean, I don't own any um, antique samplers. I've stitched many antique samplers, and some of them have my at least initials on, Some of them have my full name on. A lot of them don't have anything on. But I think somewhere down the line, after I'm long gone, collectors might start looking for pieces that were stitched by a certain person. The other reason I think that's important is because, okay, people that stitch reproduction samplers, and we're putting the name of the original stitcher on. So if we're stitching Jane Atkinson, for example, which is one I've stitched, and we put her name on, but we don't put our name on, at some point in time in the future, are people going to be confused? Was this the original or was this a reproduction? It could cause confusion down the road. And okay, probably by looking at the material and what the fibers are that it's stitched with, people that are knowledgeable will be able to tell, oh no, wait, this can't be the original because this type of fabric was not available then. So, but not every person's going to have that knowledge to know that, oh, I don't think they made Newcastle back in the 1700s. So they'll be able to tell by fabric and fibers that maybe this is not the original, it is a reproduction of the original. But I think we can help that dilemma by putting our names on. And what I try to remember to do now is to, in some manner, sign everything that I stitch so that we can take credit. Queenstown Samplers, um, Barbara Hudson, uh, who I do know her personally also. Barbara found a sampler, um, Mariah, I think that's how you say the name, Miria, but the last name is Bug. How cool is that? And when she found that, she sent me a message and said, hey, Karen, I found a sampler with your last name on it. And I'm going, oh, yes, happy days are here again. And I have that. I said, well, when you release that, you let me know because I definitely want that and I definitely want to stitch that. So I have that here, and that may very well be on my to-do list for a non-full coverage. I did start a little bit of it, and it might come out of hibernation to finish it, but I started it on 56 count Meldau fabric by Swigert. So that one, what I plan to do, in getting back to talking about signing things, is I plan to put her name on it, but I also plan to put my name on it. And mainly because there are some things that either I'm going to change the color or I'm going to let a motif out and substitute it with something else. So I will be making a couple adjustments to the original sampler and making it my own. And that's also what stitching is all about. If you really think about that, the patterns that we buy are really guidelines. It's just a guideline. You can follow it to the T and stitch it exactly as it's charted, and that's great. But I don't think there's any designer that would say to you, oh, wait, you can't alter that in any way. So I think part of that stitching journey needs to be, or doesn't have to be, but it can be, how can I make this sampler mine? And then it becomes something unique to you that we all look forward to enjoying. So, back to Stitcher's Retreat. Now that I went down that little rabbit hole, Bruce, anxious to see what style frame you're going for. You know what? Sherry is a very good friend of mine. I just love her and her sister. They're two fabulous people. I'm going to send this to Total Framing, and my instructions to them are going to be work your magic. Just work your magic. Sky's the limit. Frame it how it is going to look the best and look awesome, because after all this time, it deserves to be a shining star. It really does. So, again, Sherry, if you're watching this, you have free range. Do what you think is going to make it look the best. And that's what I'm going to be happy with, because I'll tell you what, they do an excellent job of framing needlework pieces and making them look outstanding. So I'll put a little plug in for Total Framing in Virginia, because they are just there. And I don't say that just because Sherry's a friend of mine, but they are just awesome framers. They do everything the right way. So, well, now we're on here almost 45 minutes. Does anybody else have any questions? Anything else I can jabber on about, or you want to know? Yeah, mainly I came on today to let you all have a peek at the real thing. Now, that's another question. This has to be washed. After 5 years, yeah, that fabric is a bit, oh, look here, I was doing some test stitching. But this fabric is a bit grungy. And let me tell you what, after a while, getting towards the end, I noticed it was starting to have, and that's why I'm sniffing it, it was starting to have a bit of an odor. And I think that's because when you bunch things up and you're holding it in your hands, and it's summertime and your hands sweat and you're stitching away, even though you have it rolled up against the Q-snap or rolled up against the hoop, your hands are still touching it and your hands are still warm and possibly sweating. And after 5 years, that all gets in there, and I kind of got a whiff of it every once in a while. So it absolutely must be washed and must be pressed. So my other question is, would you like a video on how to wash your needlework? Is that something that you guys would want to see? How I do this? Because that's often a question that I see in a lot of the Facebook groups is, how do you wash it? What do I do to wash it? So if that's something that you folks think would be helpful, I'm okay. Joy, thank you. I would be more than willing to make a video of washing this gymongous piece. So that can be done. So I would say, oh, good. Then you shall have it. Let's see. Today's Friday. I probably won't get to it till next week. So look for it the beginning of next week, and I'll have a video up on just what to do to wash it, and explain the products that I use and why I use them in washing a piece. So we can get all that recorded for you and see if that doesn't help you out in caring for your needlework. But oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's always the conversation about lines, column lines, diagonal lines, page lines. And for as much as I preached, diagonal stitching doesn't cause lines, I have to call myself a liar. I have to say I'm wrong because I don't know if you can see them. If I get that, let's see. I don't think you can see them, but I can. There, you can see them a little bit. There are very faint diagonal lines right down in here. Now, I see, oh, wrong way, Jose. There, can you see them? Very faint above her head are diagonal lines. So yes, I'm a liar. Liar, liar, pants on fire. You can get lines when you stitch diagonally. Um, they are so faint, though, on this piece that I am hoping when I wash it and press it that they are all going to kind of not be there because they are so faint. Um, and they're even hard to see when I show them up close to you. But see, you can see them. You can see them. So I think the best thing, no matter what method you use, is to feather your edges. Don't use a hard line, no matter what method. You know, if you're stitching cross country, no worries. No worries. If you're stitching cross country by color, no worries. If you're stitching in anything that is creating a definite line, I would highly recommend feather it. Yeah, Nooper, I think they are. I think they are going to go away when I even just washing it will make them go away, and I think even just the stretching because pull when I pull on it, they do pull out. So I think it's going to work itself out, but I just had to fess up and say I was wrong. I was wrong. There are not diagonal stitching is not going to totally alleviate those lines. The only way to be guaranteed that you're not going to have them is to feather your edges in some way. And just a food for thought, there are a lot of people that do the sawtooth type edging to avoid lines. I think I haven't tried it. So let's first say that I haven't tried it. But I would think that that could possibly also give you maybe a sawtooth line because it is repetitious. You know, it's definite triangles all the way down. I would wonder if that wouldn't give you some sort of a line in that manner. I think the easiest way is just to randomly um, feather is probably the best way to go. Just my opinion, as I said, and I reinforce this and will always reinforce this. I am not an expert. I'm not an expert. I've been stitching a long, long time, going on now the best part of 50 years. So what I share with you is just my experience, my thought, and my opinions. And it's not the be all, wear all. It's just suggestions, it's ways to help. And I think you're right too, Bruce. By ending your thread, going back over that line tends to pull it back the other way and can possibly help to reduce those lines. But as I said, I'm not an expert. I stitched a long time. I have a lot of knowledge and I love to share it with you. So that's another subject that, you know, we can get into. There's so many people out there in the world who think, how can I say this? They kind of remind me of a horse with blinders on. And their way is the best way and the only way. And for them, maybe that's okay. Um, However, what breaks my heart is to see people put down people who don't stitch the way they do. Because you know what? It's all good. It's all good. If it works for you, then that's great. What works for me might not work for you. And everybody needs to find their way and come up with a method that works for them because it's all okay. I often say this, and all of you that have been around for quite some time have heard me say this more than once. There's no right and there's no wrong. There is only yours. And I think people need to allow that to be. There are no stitching police. I haven't seen them. And look at this. All the ways I stitched. Nobody came to my house. Nobody came to my house and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, lady, you can't do it that way." Because you know what? They're not there. There's no police. So I guess the bottom line to what I'm saying is we need to be kind. We need to appreciate what other people do and the work that they're doing. And we need to encourage them and we need to support them in whatever their method is. And we need to allow them to ask the questions. Okay, you know what? And for some of it that have been stitching for a long, long time, we go, oh, geez, don't they know this? But this is so basic, they should know this. How many times have you thought that? But then you've got to stop yourself. Stop yourself and think, I don't know this person's history. I don't know. Have they been stitching for 20 years? I don't know if they only started stitching 2 weeks ago. And that is a real question. And that question is important. It might not be important to you, but it is important to them. So what we need to do, or what I would hope we would all do, is to kindly answer that question and give them the support and encouragement that they need to get through that project, to complete that project, or do whatever it is that they want to do. I can remember oh my god, I can't believe that this happened, but I was at one of the stitching sessions at the shop that I used to stitch at, and I even taught some classes there for her. But there was a gal that was stitching, and she was doing a big Quaker sampler, and she stitched in hand, and she had trouble with her eyes. And we were talking about stitching and talking about tension, and she handed it to me to say, how's my tension? How do my stitches look? And I said to her, I can't really tell how your stitches look because there were times where she crossed it and didn't hit the right hole and went up a row, or only crossed the top half instead of over two, she went in the middle over one, and it was very hard. And I said, I can't tell what your tension is because these things are happening. And we encouraged her to get some magnification, that would probably help a whole lot. One of the other girls later came back and said, well, if that was my piece, I would just throw it away. It's just garbage. I would just throw it away. And that was in a less kinder time. So, as I recall, I ended up having an extra pair of cheaters that I gave her and said, here, try these. And that might help and make things a bit better for you to be able to see. So, I guess what I'm saying is let's be encouraging, because we don't know a person's history, and we don't know whether they've been stitching for 30 years or whether they've been stitching for 2 weeks, or whether this is their very first project and they only started yesterday. They have questions. So let's answer their questions and be kind. So now that was my second soapbox. So I will get off my soapbox. So now that I have tied you all up for an hour, when I thought this was going to be just well, why would I even think that to begin with? That was stupid on my part. Why would I think it was only going to be an hour? I always ramble on longer than that. Yes, it was mean of her to say I would just throw it away and start over. Yeah, it was mean. So I think I'm going to say goodbye for today. Look for a video on how to wash and care for your needlework after it's all said and done. I wish many. Bruce, you're too funny. I love all you guys. You guys are amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I love all of you for all your encouragement, your support, your funny ha-has, and sharing your time with me. So next week we'll have a how to care for your needlework and washing it. And I'll get that video up for you. And I think what I'm going to do is try and start a rotation, believe it or not. I'm not a rotator, but I'm going to try it this time. Just because I'm at a point where I can't really decide what I want to stitch at this moment. And I go through this every time I finish something, which truthfully has not been that often in the last 5 years, but I go through this period of time of unrest and uneasiness, and I want to stitch, but I don't really want to stitch that, but I don't really want to stitch this. So I think what I will do is uh, try and make some weekly or every other weekly videos of this is what I'm working on now. And maybe we'll get some live chats in there again too. So with that, my friends, I'm going to say ta-ta for now. Thanks for sharing my finish with me, and I love you all. So I will see you next time. Have a great weekend. Stitch your hearts out and enjoy. We're having nice weather here for a change, so enjoy your weekend and find your joy in your stitching. See you next time. Bye bye.